Dee, why are you getting so much rain in Oklahoma?
I haven't a clue, but it is sunny outside today, so let's get started. I want to do some weeding. So much weeding.
Oh my, let's go. Do it, do it, do it.
Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we chat about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I still have a large weedy garden out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre and freshly mown.
We are Garden Angelus because we love gardening and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee.
Hello, Carol. It looks like you've done more in the garden this week than I have.
Well, it didn't rain all week for me,
It rained
so
every day.
oh my. So I finally weeded the long border of the vegetable garden. It kind of goes along the fence and it's about
Mhm.
2 feet wide. And somehow evening primrose has gotten in there and it is the
Oh.
devil plant. So I weeded all that and I've got seeds sown out there for marigolds and zinnias. I weeded in the front. I've mowed and trimmed and I've decided where I'm going to plant a little herb garden. Dee, are you excited?
I am excited. Is it in full sun?
Yes, it's in full sun. And then I planted out 3 oregano plants that I bought in there. This morning I ran to the greenhouse and I bought a fourth oregano because it was a different kind. So I have
You're
4
going to
kinds
just
of
have oregano in this bed. You know that, right?
right.
Oregano is
Well,
a huge, huge spreader, listeners. So I'm just saying, in about a year, you're going
I
to come back and go, Dee, what was I thinking? I planted 4 plants of oregano.
there are 4 different varieties though. I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
So and then this morning really early it was raining and then it stopped raining. And so I wanted to put this organic fertilizer on my lawn and I got this new sprayer, hose in sprayer. I'm like an idiot. I'm going along and I'm like, it's not drawing it up through the sprayer. So I'm just spraying water. I messed around with that. I had to run down to Menards and get another sprayer. So I'll get to that later today.
So I've done that very thing back when I had used all organic stuff because I could. There's debris in those organic sprays and it clogs up those sprayers really bad.
No, no, this wasn't nothing
That
ever
isn't
drew
the
up.
issue.
That is not the issue. I don't think it gets the right pressure in there. It's got to have that
Ah,
pressure. And I don't think the way I went and got, it's going to sound like an oxymoron. I went and got an ortho sprayer to put on my organic fertilizer.
I used one. I used a hose end ortho sprayer for years. It had the big MG on it, and I just sprayed that kale, whatever kind of spray, whatever I had at the
Mm.
time. I sprayed it right through there and kind of enjoyed it. So I want to ask one more question about your herb garden for our listeners. Why are you placing it in the sun?
Because most herbs like the hot sun,
Because they're from.
the Mediterranean region.
That's right. And so
And
when
we're going
they
to get into
grow,
that more when we get to the
are we?
bookshelf.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
see, I didn't read that part.
that's okay.
Yes, I still have my cold, but it's getting better. Okay, so anything else you wanted to say?
I want to hear about your garden. Are you growing mushrooms now in the
Mm,
moist?
It feels like it, but no, it's drained so far. But my lake, which was really, really low, is now really, really high. And it's almost made it to the culvert tin horn. They're called tin horns in Oklahoma. It's almost made it to that pipe. And so it's like, wow, it hasn't been that high well, not since 2011. Let's put it that way, since the Great
Drought
Drought.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my garden, there's not much to say except for every time it quit raining, I was out there pulling weeds because they've become a problem and there's no way I can stay ahead. So that's the way it goes. And then I've also been fighting bronchitis all week. So I haven't felt like really doing that much, but things are looking up. And then my plants from greatgardenplants.com, who I've never ordered from before, they came. They were small. It'll take them 3 years to do much. So I'm going to have to put in some tropicals around that. And that's for the pots that are at the end of the garden. But they were healthy. They were healthy and they looked good. So I was pretty happy about that. And I garden coached someone, a client that I've garden coached before. He came back. He's in a new house, he and his wife. So that was fun. And that's it.
I was going to say, I got some plants yesterday from Darwin Perennials, some
I love
trial plants,
Darwin's stuff. Yeah, it's great.
some Augustachi, a coneflower, couple of foxgloves, and I forget what else. There's about 9 plants out there.
Wow,
I
that's
think
cool.
that is very nice. So I'm anxious to get those in the ground and see what they do here and there and
Yeah.
everywhere. So let's play favorites.
My favorite is my pots on the deck. They are fabulous right now. And I took some pictures last week to show you. And all that rain has made them very happy. And I've been fertilizing them. Well, I was fertilizing them once a week, but I missed last week because it was raining. There was no reason to fertilize them. So, what about you?
So the pots you had as your favorites last week, were those ones on the deck or someplace else?
Those are down at the end of the garden beside my chairs.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
My new geranium theater is looking marvelous, Dee.
good. I like it.
And
I mean, I like a good geranium theater.
I posted a picture of it actually on Substack Notes of all places. I might have put a story on Instagram, but anyway, I like it.
I think you did put a story. I think that's where I saw it, or you sent it to me. I don't remember. That's the funny part about our relationship is we text back and forth, but we also talk on Instagram and we talk on Messenger. And we
Crazy.
also discuss Substack, so I never know where anything is. That's the way it goes.
Okay.
So, question of the week. Do you want to ask the first question?
We got this from a text on that send me a text, so we can't reply on the text. We have no idea. It says, I love your podcast and learn so much. I live in Colorado at about 5,500 feet high desert. Millions of grasshoppers again this year. I'm considering using a spray permethrin.
Permethrin.
Using an insecticide is not my usual MO, but dang, there are already so many nymphs. Any ideas for me? And that is Lynn from, I believe it's Canyon City.
Yeah. Okay, and you said, what say you, Dee? Okay, so here's the first thing I would do. I think things in your area, it's always good to check with your local extension service first before you spray because they will have the most up-to-date information for your area. And I know that they fight grasshoppers up there like we do in Western Oklahoma. I fight them too in my garden, but not like they do in Western Oklahoma. So there was a bacteria, and it's still out there, that kills grasshoppers, but the plant where they produced it, it was called Nola bait, and it burned. And as far as I can tell online, they no longer produce it. I did find where there's a new bait on the market called Echo Brand, which uses the same technology, but it uses something called carbaryl. And on their website, it says that they have reduced the toxicity to other creatures by putting it on the brand because it has to be ingested and it will not kill flying insects. The problem with a broad spectrum spray, which permethrin is a broad spectrum insecticide, I almost said herbicide, but it's an insecticide, is that it can kill everybody. And that's not what you want to do.
Right.
So whether you're talking about, anything you can do to reduce the toxicity is a good thing. So with this information, I would take that to your extension service and ask them about it.
Excellent answer.
How do you like that research I did, Carol?
You did great research. We also got a text from Deborah in South Bend. She says that she has a patch of Joe Pye weed, which we talked about with the letter J. For 20 years, she loves it, but it does self-sow all over her beds. I do not have Joe Pye weed everywhere. So I guess it's situational.
I do not. It stays exactly where I put it all over the 3 places it is, and it never moves. So like everything else, it depends on location. And I just realized that my favorite was the same thing as last week, and I don't care. It is the same pots.
I don't care either. I was just like,
It could be my new pots, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. I would say you're a great pot gardener, but that has the wrong connotation.
That's true. It does. I don't know. Right now, I'm not in love with my in-ground garden at all. Let's put it that way. It's too wet.
Yeah.
It's too gross.
Okay.
All right, quote.
I'm going to do a quote. I'm going to do one. It always seems to me as if the lavender was a little woman in a green dress with a lavender bonnet and a white kerchief. She's one of those strong, sweet, wholesome people who always rest you and her sweetness lingers long after she goes away. Myrtle Reed.
Beautiful. And it's L. L is for lavender. And we have talked
L.
about lavender before.
Yes. And I wrote a
I
note that
love
says
lavender.
there's three kinds: Spanish, French, English, and that is kind of in the order of their hardiness. And I had people say to me, I bought this beautiful lavender plant. It was in full bloom, but it didn't overwinter. And I say, you probably bought the Spanish lavender, which is not hardy for us.
Yeah.
So I recommend the English lavender, which is the hardiest of the lavenders.
Okay.
And I recommend that you don't mulch it, and that once it's had its first flush of bloom,
Yeah.
after that first flush of bloom, you can
Yes.
trim it back and may get a few blooms. I had some blooms even late into the fall last year, which was kind of a weird fall. So
I have one lavender that blooms twice. That's an English lavender. And it blooms twice a year no matter what. And it's the old Bonnie lavender that they didn't label. And then I have phenomenal lavender, which blooms once but blooms well and does well in our humidity. But again, it wants to live in the, high, kind of a high alkaline, hot place. So you do not want to plant it in your regular beds. I can't tell you how many of my clients plant lavender and are sad. It's better to grow it in a pot here or a raised bed.
yeah, the lavender that does so well in my vegetable garden is it's growing by a rock, and I do nothing except, let it grow, and then I'll trim it back after it blooms. But I did grow some lavender from seed when we were writing those articles for Family Handyman. I had to
Yes.
grow lavender from seed, and those seedlings are out there, and I did put them along the edge of a perennial border, and they look pretty good. Now, this is starting their third year, I think. So I hope that they bloom this year. I need to go back and check them to see if they will.
So I used Anya the Garden Fairy's solution for doing seedlings, to do them, and it worked great. And I can't say enough nice things about her book. It's a good book. And I got like 10 or 12. And so the thing about, yes.
What
What were you
was
going to
her
ask?
technique for lavender seedlings?
Well, it's just she had you take them all off. I can't describe what it was different because I'm not doing it right this second, but I think she had you put them along the edge of the pot. So it kind of wicked away the moisture. I think that was part of it. And
Okay.
all I know is it worked. And you use a really gritty compost, of course. But I had tried and tried and tried and couldn't get it to work. This year I did. So one of the things I wanted to say is no matter how good you are at lavender, periodically it just dies here. And so I use those seedlings to fill in. And one of them is actually blooming, which is crazy because it's only that big, which is about, I don't know, an inch. And it's got a little bloom spike coming up. And I'm like, well, you didn't need to do that. And actually, they went really fast. I mean, in the past, when I've tried to do it, they either rotted or they took forever. This time didn't take forever. So I don't know.
Well, several years ago, and I say several years ago, and somebody could come back and say that was 20 years ago, Carol. I think it was Burpee came out with Lady Lavender that was you could grow
Lady
from seed
Gray,
and it would
maybe?
flower.
Yeah, I think it was Lady Gray, but I could be wrong. I remember this
So
lavender.
that, it was supposed to flower the same year that you did the seed. So you could treat it kind of like an annual. But I did buy two beautiful Spanish lavenders from Costco. They're sitting out on my back stoop, one on each side, and they're in the same black containers. And I thought, I really should up pot those into something nicer, but I'll
Yeah,
get
you
around to it.
should. They deserve
Uh,
it. And put them in some terracotta or put them in concrete
I'm
because
going
they
to.
really love that. I'm
Yeah,
saying that for our
I
listeners,
gotta
not for
find
you.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
can do
gotta
that.
find, and they need to match because they're on each side of the step. I guess.
So I go to Facebook Marketplace for that. And I have found a lot of things. In fact, there were two more Pottery Barn just up the street urns, which would be perfect for that. But alas, you live there, I live here. And no, I did not buy
Exactly.
them. Okay, so in the beginning, when I was a little bit off, and by the way, I like Spanish and French lavender too in pots for just fun. I mean, I
Right.
have to bring it into the greenhouse if I'm going to keep it. Okay, so what the reason I seemed off and wasn't didn't look like I was paying attention is you wrote Ligularia D question mark, and I was like, what the heck is ligularia? Ligularia. And so I ran and looked it up really quick, and it's farfagium, which is it's changed its name. So yes, ligularia is lion. What else is it called? Isn't it called lion's
I
ears or
I never grow it. I'm just not all that
leopard
attracted to
plant?
it. I just
Yeah.
don't I don't grow it. Move on.
No, it's okay. I do grow it. Leopard plant, giant leopard plant, because some of the leaves are spotted on some varieties. My
Yeah.
favorite variety is a dark variety that I don't know the name of that has been in the same spot in my garden for 15 years. And it just sits in the shade, blooms in the summer, has dark leaves the rest of the year. It's just a shade perennial. It's okay. I mean, I'm not in love with it.
I'm not in love with it either. And so I'm like, you go knock yourself out, Dee. You put it on the list.
Did I? That's funny.
Yeah.
That's the funniest part. Okay, so lilacs. What do you
So
want to say?
I would say if you're going to trim your lilacs, now is the time to do it because they do form their flower buds. I always say after 4th of July, they're forming flower buds for next year. And this year, by the way, we had really good bloom on lilacs, whereas last year we did not. We just had cold at the wrong time and it zapped a lot of the flower buds. But this year they've been really nice. And I listed 4 kinds that you're probably going to find at the garden center.
Yep. I have one of
The
I have two
Meyer
of them.
lilac, Syringa Meyeri, which is the smallest of them. It has smaller, almost round leaves,
Yep.
very nicely scented. You can keep
Yep.
that one down, and it's still going to have to be trimmed, but you can keep it down in size.
Yep.
Miss Kim, which is a
She's a
hybrid.
Korean
Miss
lilac.
Kim, Korean
Hmm.
lilac, and
Yeah, she was supposed to stay small. I mean, by common lilac standards, she does, but she's pretty big. I have two of them, and they're pretty big.
I had
They
two. They
stink.
were,
I
huh?
think they stink. I think they
Well, I have
stink.
3 on the side of the house, and they were probably up to 6 feet, and then I whacked them back down to almost nothing, and they just came back and, regenerated themselves, which you can do that. They rejuvenate if you cut
Yeah,
them
they
back,
do.
a lot of them, especially
Especially
common
if you cut
lilacs.
them back. Yeah, common lilacs. Mine is probably 20 feet tall and 10 feet wide now, but it's down by the fence and I don't care. And I could redo it, I could regenerate it for next year if I wanted to, but there's just so much stuff to do around here. And now, what else you want to say? I think common lilacs smell amazing.
They do. They smell very good. So many different varieties. And
So many.
there's a poem about Abraham Lincoln and the lilacs by the door. For who wrote that poem? D.
I have no idea.
Okay. I don't know. Walt Whitman, maybe, but it's
I
because the lilacs bloom in April around the time that Lincoln was assassinated. And there's actually a Mr. Lincoln or Abraham Lincoln lilac that has a little white fringe around the florets, purple florets.
really.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I've actually grown that one a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was going to
But
look up
anyway,
and pull
lots
one
of
for
different
you.
varieties of common lilacs, but just remember size. They are big, biggins.
Yeah, big, big, big. So don't put them anywhere that you want to keep them a certain size. And now there's a newer lilac on. Oh, it's Walt Whitman.
I thought it was Walt
That's
Whitman.
it is when lilacs last and the dooryard bloomed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I
it's
knew there
written in
was.
free verse and it mourns the death of President Lincoln.
Yes. Yes.
We will link to it. I'm linking to it right now.
All right. And then last we can talk about, and it's the bloomerang reblooming lilacs.
Yep.
This is from Proven Winners. And actually, my sister at the condo has a bloomerang, and I think it looked really, really good this year in the spring.
Uh-huh.
And these stay fairly small. These are not big at all.
Do they smell
But
good?
I did not have a chance to go over and smell hers when it was blooming. I was there a while back when it had the buds all over it. I don't know what I was doing
Uh-huh.
there, delivering a geranium, hanging geranium. But anyway, the reblooming part, it's like sporadic blooms here and there. I don't
Yeah.
think you're not going to get a big flush of lilac bloom
No.
in summer or fall. So don't
No.
so it's to me it's kind of a novelty aspect of it, but not the reason I would buy that one.
Okay, cool. I'm not growing them.
Yeah.
I have enough lilacs. I don't need any more. But I've heard they're very nice. And according to the computer in online land, it says that they are fragrant. I don't know if do they smell more like Miss Kim, which I think stinks, or do they smell like common lilacs, which smell delicious? Who knows?
Who knows?
So the next thing is lupins.
Yes. A short-lived perennial, it says.
I can't grow them.
Well, I don't usually try to grow them. They are a short-lived perennial, but my neighbor across the way by their utility box, they've got several lupins that are growing quite
Hmm.
nicely. And so according to the Missouri Botanic Garden, you should just grow them as annuals.
Right?
Um, but if any of our listeners are growing them successfully and would like to tell us about them, they can comment on the newsletter or they can send us a text. But they're beautiful. They bloom in May, obviously. So I'm seeing them over
Yep.
there, my neighbors. And but again, I this is not a plant it and forget it kind of plant.
Well, they won't work in Oklahoma, so just don't even do it. If you just have to, you can try to grow the Texas ones, but even those don't do well here. The problem with lupins for Oklahoma is our soil is too alkaline. They just now someone's going to write me and say I have beautiful ones. I want to see them because I don't think you can grow them here. And they would bloom
Well,
here
there
in
you go.
April. All right. Do you want me to do the next quote? Oh, one more thing about lupins. I looked it up while you were talking. The book Miss Runfius. My kids loved that book about the lady who spread lupin seeds all over the western part of the US. It was kind of it's a sweet little book.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of it.
It's about a real lady. Okay, ready?
I am.
As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. And that's from Genesis 8:22 NIV. And so our vegetables, L, go for it.
Well, you put leeks on the list, and I'm like, okay, tell us about leeks,
We
Dee.
I think leeks are really hard to grow. I've tried and tried, and I'm sure there's a way to do it. I think it would be to plant them in the fall like you do garlic and do it in
Uh-huh.
a cold frame. That would be my next try. But here's the deal. I can buy organic leeks for almost nothing at the store. And at this point in my life, I want to grow things I get a bountiful harvest from. And I do not get
Right.
that with leeks.
Well, I'm looking up leeks in the book, the Bible
Yep.
of vegetable growing,
Yep.
and
Farmer Lee
Lee
Jones.
Jones. Let's see what he has to say. I should have looked this up before, but
I'm sure I'm sure he grows lots of leeks and does really well with them.
well, he says they look like bunching onions, but have a distinctive species and are often underappreciated in the United States.
They are. That's
Uh,
true. They're wonderful in dishes because they have a really mild flavor. They're good in soups.
he says that they harvest them when they are as thin as a number two pencil and have very
Huh.
dark green tops. He says if you live in a cooler, rainy place, you will likely enjoy growing leeks. It is a winter hardy plant, meaning you can put it in the ground in the fall and they'll be ready to harvest sometime in the spring.
There you go.
He's even picked them in the snow. Also, you can plant in the spring, first starting them indoors for late summer harvest.
Well, you
So,
know what? Maybe I would try it. I don't know. Let's move on to lettuce because
okay.
it has been a very good lettuce year in Oklahoma. It's been cold
Imagine
and
what a
rainy
cold and rainy, that's what your lettuce loves. And so we've talked about lettuce a lot,
a lot.
but the trick is you got to sow them early and they
Hmm.
don't like the heat. When it gets hot, they bolt and they send up a flower stalk and then they turn all bitter. And so, do you remember a few years ago I did that experiment when I found varieties from the 1950s that Hal Borland said his wife Barbara grew? They
Yes, I
actually
do.
tasted pretty good.
Good. Good for
And
you.
they did really well.
So I would say so early, so often, because that way you get different stages too. And
Uh-huh.
there are lettuce varieties that are said there are out there seeds that say they're summer lettuce. Well, that's not summer lettuce in Oklahoma. And there are varieties that they've created that don't bolt, but they still turn extremely bitter. Once they've turned bitter, you don't want lettuce anymore. And right now, we've been eating lettuce for a month. I mean, it has been a lettuce
Uh,
year.
I've been eating lettuce for 2 to 3 weeks. But here's the thing, and I thought this was kind of weird. Right next to the lettuce is spinach, and some of the spinach bolted right away. And I'm like,
That's
that's
weird.
not right.
It's weird.
So
Sometimes it does that though. I don't
yeah,
know. Spinach is a strange crop. I do better with it if I do it in the fall.
but you are
But get
right.
this, my radishes are nuts this year. I can't get a decent radish to save my life, and I'm like,
You know, I not
what the
to
heck?
stray from lettuce, but I will say on the radish, my French breakfast were the only ones that produced anything that was edible. The rest were just woody and not
Weird.
very good.
So I don't know
But
what
French
that's
breakfast,
about. We can just call this lettuce and friends or lettuce and companions.
lettuce and companions. There you go. But I'm almost to the point where it's like the only radish I'm even going to try to grow is French breakfast because the others, they
They're
just been
just
a
not
huge
reliable.
disappointment. But
Yeah, they're
lettuce
not
has been good.
reliable.
Lettuce has been good.
Yeah, great lettuce. And there's different kinds. There's Cos, which is also romaine. There's leaf lettuce. There's butter lettuce. And there's iceberg lettuce. Those are just a
Don't
few.
grow iceberg lettuce. It's
Don't grow
although
iceberg. It's not worth it. Last year, do you
no.
remember when I did Baby Jim for Bill, which is a
Uh-huh.
Boston lettuce or a butter lettuce, a bib lettuce? I transplanted all those little babies and put in it. That was really fun and it was really beautiful. It made my garden look beautiful at the time. And no, I didn't take any pictures of it. I just ate it. So no, there will not be one for the newsletter, Carol. Sorry.
I didn't ask.
You would have though. You would have sent me one. She sends me notes. This is a behind the scenes thing. She does the notes for the program and fixes up the program. And then there are notes inside of it, which I really appreciate, that say, what about a picture of your whatever here? And then
And just to
and
be
you
ornery,
insert
I might put
yours.
in there D picture of your baby gem lettuce. So I don't have much more to say about lettuce other than
Me
the other
neither.
tip that Hal Borland's wife had was if you have to transplant them, do it in the rain.
Yeah, make sure they're well watered. Which this
Yes.
week you could have. You could have transplanted
I could
all
have
the
done it this
lettuce you
morning in the
wanted.
rain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who wants to be in the rain planting lettuce? All right, you want
Nobody.
to do the next quote?
Naturally, the path to fairy is overgrown with what some call weeds and wildflowers. And that is a quote by the Silver Elves, authors of the Myths of Fairy, a Magical Guide. I have no idea where I found that, D. It sounds, when I read it now, it sounds really kind of weird.
It sounds a little weird, but it's fairies. It's okay. So you have this book. I do not. It is called,
I actually
you
have two
actually
books,
have
but go
what?
ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, is this the book we're doing first?
Yeah.
Okay. The Complete Language of Herbs, a Definitive and Illustrated History by Teresa Dietz.
So
Okay.
I picked this
And
up at Half Price Books for half price. And
cool.
it's interesting because the language of, and we'll talk about the language of flowers further down when I get into my rabbit holes, but they, it's very nicely illustrated. And I turned it to the L's. See, it's got lavender.
Oh, it does have lavender.
And so it's really nicely illustrated. And then it's just got all these weird facts about herbs. And you go back to the Victorian era and they had all that meaning of flowers and plants. Well, I think she's done 3 books now. The Complete Language of Flowers. And then this one is the Complete Language of Herbs. And then I think she's done the Complete Language of Trees. And so I looked these things up. And when you realize what you're looking at, it's like it kind of makes sense. But for
Uh-huh.
example, for sweet peas, which is Lathyrus odoratus,
Uh-huh.
the symbolic meanings are blissful pleasure, chastity, delicacy, departure, goodbye, I think of you, meeting, a meeting, thank you for a lovely time. And then she's got possible powers, chastity, courage, feminine energy, friendship, strength, water element. And then she's got like folklore and facts. It says, wear a sprig of sweet pea for strength. To help keep someone chaste, place a nosegay of sweet pea flowers in a vase in their bedroom. And then it says, fresh sweet pea flowers forge friendships. Hold a sweet pea flower in your hand to encourage the truth to be told to you. And then make them wear or carry a sweet pea sachet then wear a sweet pea sachet for strength and courage. So that's just got all these different herbs. And some of these I'm like, well, I don't know what she defines as an herb, but there's just tons of them out here. And there's some trees and different things. And so it's just kind of interesting book. Lovely to look at and find out weird, useful facts. And I'm all about weird, useless facts. So anyway, that's book number 1, The Complete Language of Flowers, which I own because I bought it at Half Price Books. They had a big stack of them.
Good for you.
Big stack. And I thought, you know what? Just for looks alone, I like that book. And then
Good.
from the library, Dee, I have picked up.
I looked that one up.
This is cool. Diary of a French Herb Garden by Geraldine Holt. And this was The Lost Ladies of Garden Writing. I think it was after I did my talk with Noel Kingsbury that I got a comment from a woman who said, have I read anything by Geraldine Holt? Now, she doesn't qualify to be a lost lady because she's British and she's alive. And
well, yeah.
So, but this is what I call.
And we don't do, we're just doing Americans, right?
Yes. So this is what I call a quiet read. So she tells the story of how she came to restore an ancient walled garden in a beautiful village deep in the Ardèche region of France. And then she goes through all the stages of remarking the garden, from the construction of the cobbled footpath, a stone bridge, the discovery of an ancient irrigation system, stories of the villagers and the many ways in which they use herbs in the region. And it follows the gardening year month by month. And I love those too. And illustrated.
I like memoirs.
Yeah, it's got some illustrations throughout it. So, like here, I'm on page. I'm getting ready to read June. See, nice illustrations.
Yeah, I like it.
And pretty. About how she got.
Do you know what that thing costs? I looked up on Amazon.
That's the thing. Ridiculous. This book came out in 2002.
Yeah,
and so it's out of print. And I thought, I would really like to have this book, Dee. And then
it's expensive, and you can't find it on thrift books either.
No, I mean, so it's one of those. It's like if I ever saw this book in a used bookstore, I'd snatch it up. And you can go to bookfinder.com, and I think the cheapest you could probably get this book is for about $30.
Yeah, I saw 30 or 40.
And I'm like, that's a lot of money.
But it's just my kind of book because it's a memoir. It's set in France.
It is.
It's got herbs. It's all the things I love.
And it takes place in 2002. And so there are some references to world events instead of whatever. So like I just turned randomly, Dee, to a page, and it says, and this is in August, at noon we tune into French television where cameras in Normandy are monitoring the total eclipse.
What? That's crazy.
He said 600 kilometers further south, we are experiencing a partial eclipse, but its effect is still astonishing. So, it's really, it's really nice. And I wish I actually owned this. It's going to have to go back to the library here in a little bit. When is that? I don't know.
I just looked it up, and it's not even in our library. So there's no way.
I am so sorry to tempt you with a book like that, Dee, that is
it's really
both charming, but expensive and not in your library.
Especially when I got rid of 5 bags of books yesterday.
So, and then she's got...
I do not need to buy more.
There's lists of all the plants that she planted in the garden. It's really nice. It starts in September. So I will be finishing that probably by the weekend. Take it back to the library.
Good for you.
That was the 2 books I had. I'm in my herbal phase, Dee.
I can tell. Like I was in my little French phase the other day. Are you ready for the next quote?
I am.
To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour, by William Blake. Sorry, I butchered that. I should have put it in there better so I could tell the little pieces. But that's true. So our dirt is how gardening can help you live better for longer.
Yes,
it's from the BBC.
Yeah, and so I will quote. It says, nature prescriptions can increase physical activity and social connection while reducing stress, which have multiple positive knock-on effects for blood pressure, blood sugar control, and healthy weight, reducing the risk of diseases that can lead to dementia.
Okay. All those things.
All the things.
It's like the blue zones. I watched a deal this morning on Instagram, and it's the same principle. And he was talking about gardening, and he was talking about life purpose. And in all the blue zones, they have words for you, what makes you wake up in the morning. And so it should be that you give back to others, have a religious practice or whatever. And I thought, oh, well, Carol and I give back to others. And
Yeah.
so that's a good reason. And gardening's in there too. In fact, it's on one of my Instagram reels. I have his quotes where it's like, this helps you live a long time. In fact, there's a video going around of a lady who's in her 90s who's on an island in Greece. And she gets up every day and tends her vegetable garden, which is a series of pots.
Yeah.
You do not have to have a giant garden.
No, you do not. But here's the
You
other
just
thing
are
it
supposed to
says.
get out there and touch the soil.
It says new data sheds light on the advantages of spending time gardening. In a first of its kind study, researchers from the University of Edinburgh investigated if there might be a link between gardening and changes in intelligence, says our lifetimes, over lifetimes. The study compared the intelligence scores of participants at age 11 and age 79. The results showed that those who spent time gardening showed greater lifetime improvement in their cognitive ability than those who never or rarely did.
Don't you think it's partly because we're making new connections with our brains all the time?
Probably.
I think it's part of it because you are always thinking about, gardening is always changing. The weather's never the same. For some reason, the radishes this year are all woody. Who knows why? There's just things that you try to figure out through the whole way. And then you have to change things sometimes.
That's right. So anyway, it's quite an interesting article. And so you need to be out in the garden it's good for you in so many ways. Because the other thing they talked about is 5 minutes to stay young, from reading a page of a book every day to knee strengthening exercises. It says this series looks at simple lifestyle changes you can make now that will have a big impact on how you age. The best part, they all take less than 5 minutes.
Cool.
So anyway, we will link to that article. That is our dirt.
Okay, cool. I'll see if I can find that other video of the lady who was gardening.
Yes. I'll do a
It's
quote.
a little hard to search for things on Instagram, though.
Yeah. We who live in quiet places have the opportunity to become acquainted with ourselves, to think our own thoughts and live our own lives in a way that is not possible for those keeping up with the crowd. Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I would say also those who are scrolling social media constantly, they are, think for yourselves, people.
My daughter offered to send me something on social media today. We were discussing things we'd read about different things. And I said, only send me the positive stuff. I said, because honestly, I don't want the algorithm sending me other bad stuff, period.
Yeah.
And I also try to put my phone down and walk away from it for long periods of time because you can just get sucked in. Next thing you know, you've been there for 30 minutes. In fact, there's some jokes about that, which you and I send to each other, which are funny.
Right.
So rabbit holes, speaking of, mine is that I've been doing research on supplements for mast cell activation syndrome and just finding out new information all the time. You?
So I told you that I would connect the book, that language of herbs, with Lucy Hooper is the latest lost lady of garden writing. I posted about her on Wednesday. And that was an interesting rabbit hole. And I tell you, she died in 1841. She was only 25 years old. But she was so beloved that, John Greenleaf Whittier wrote a poem about her. But she wrote a book, the Lady's Guide to Flowers and Herbs or something like that. I should know the name of it. But anyway, I linked to it because you can read it online. I don't have this book. It was published after she died. But in the back, she's got the language of flowers in there as well. And what the flowers have different meaning. And so I thought that, it's like all the books I'm reading this week, old and new, seem to have all these meanings of all these plants. So the other thing,
the Victorians were crazy about that. So I'm not surprised.
The other thing, a bit of a rabbit hole, but so I didn't write this down here, but on YouTube, there's videos of this guy named Bobby who goes to like Aldi and Costco and Walmart, and he tells you if food is good or not, if it's good for you.
Okay.
And so he's got this app, and I think the app is actually called Bobby Approved. That's his name. He's down in Florida. And so you can scan a barcode and then it'll come back and say whether it's Bobby approved. And if it'll highlight in red the bad ingredients. And so, if you scan a package of Oreos, and I wouldn't, it'll come back and say, definitely not Bobby approved. So he tags seed oils and he
No.
tags, if it's got like refined sugar and stuff, but he tells you
Right.
why it's not approved. So I was scanning stuff in Costco and I'm like, oh, my favorite granola bites aren't Bobby approved.
Yeah.
But here's this granola cereal in this other aisle that is Bobby approved. I'll just eat a few bits of that instead.
Well, we're going to need a link to that just for fun.
Yeah, Bobby approved. And I don't know if anybody of our listeners watch the videos, but it does make you think, the longer the list of ingredients, the less likely you are to find that you want to eat that.
Yeah. I just don't want to read all the ingredients, so I don't eat that stuff because there's just too many opportunities for mammal ingredients, if you're trying to read, or carrageenan. Carrageenan's in everything.
You can also list your allergies, and then they'll tell you if something has one of your allergens in it. I don't know if meat is actually one of the allergens that they offer. But
mammal isn't there yet. It's going to be, though, because I think that law is going to get passed, and it'll be the 10th allergen.
Anyway.
So
anyway. Lucy Hooper and Bobby approved. And then, of course, I'm reading about French herb gardens. That's my week.
And you put together part of the Lego sunflowers.
I did. I'm building the Lego Van Gogh sunflower picture, and I have built some of that. Yes.
I've been building the Lego orchids, but I got a kitten, and that kitten wants to eat them, so I had to put it up for a while. I'll get it back out. But
yes.
It's just that stage he's in. Did you notice there's no kitten in here? I closed the door, and I said, you have to go away, because he was wanting to be a pain. Meanwhile, things are not going well with kitten land. I'm just saying, because the cat is not happy. She is not happy at all. How about your
what are you doing this week?
I'm going to plant up those concrete flower pots and I'm going to weed and fix my paths. That's it.
That's a good thing. I'm going to probably start trimming shrubs, but it's got to dry out a little bit. I'm going to finish fertilizing that lawn because I got that new sprayer. Weed mow. I'm looking for more varieties of thyme. I found the one variety of oregano that I was looking for. And then I do need to fertilize containers today, probably.
Do you eat a lot of oregano?
Uh-uh.
I didn't think so. Okay, so one thing we haven't mentioned at all this month is Chelsea chopping our perennials back. We've been doing that too, right?
I did a little bit of that actually
a couple
of weeks ago because it's been a phenomenal growth year for plants. This spring has been really, really good. Stuff as big as and nice as I've ever seen it.
Yep, here too. It's almost to the point of it's overwhelming how good it is. And I'm like, okay. So yes, I've been cutting back some of my asters and digging out other asters and trying to get rid of stuff. So just, tidying up.
That's you go.
What we do.
Are we done, Dee?
Yes.
Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free newsletter, you get a link to listen to the podcast a day early and links to the products we discuss. Some of these are affiliate links, which really helps us. Oh, plus, you can go over to YouTube and see us in person. Full episodes show up on Tuesdays. Not used to that one yet. All right, keep going.
If you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs nothing extra for you.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
We want to thank everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.